You're welcome. Yeah, I know, it's like the last 3 minutes of basketball game, could take an hour. Come on.
Watching water boil.
It is. It's very-
Fine, being recorded.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right, we got 6 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, everybody.
So first thing on the agenda is Canaan Town Library trustees. Cindy, that's you, I believe, no?
Well, I'm not one of the elected trustees.
Okay.
I'm the president of the Friends of the
Oh, friends,
Library,
okay, yeah.
so I can't speak for the
Okay.
trustee.
Do you know what it's about? No, they just have to be on the agenda. Yep. Do you have any idea what it's about? You don't know?
I think, yes, there's concern about the condition of the library building being the most prominent building in downtown. When it's represented that we're trying to improve the look of the downtown. It's really an embarrassment, and I think they wanted to talk to you specifically about what's going to be done and when. to
Okay.
address that.
And that it continues to deteriorate. So as time goes on, there's more rot that's being discovered and.
Well, it won't get better on its own in time. We all know that, right? So I know it's been on the list of buildings for a long time.
Well, we put it out for bid for painting twice now.
We've put out 2 separate RFPs.
And
Has it been in the newspaper? A lot of times RFPs are broadcast widely.
I honestly don't know because the last one was sent. It was my first year, to be honest, with you, I think it was, so.
So I think an RFP for just a couple examples, like a water project or construction, I can understand that, but to put in, and again, I'll do whatever the collective body wants to do. But I think if you start accepting quotes from anybody who's gonna look at it in the paper, then we're all gonna waste our money. Because anybody who's short of work enough where they're responding to RFPs that are in the paper, there's probably a reason why they don't have any work. That's just my concern, but I agree, as far as we gotta get it out there somewhere, so I don't know how to find that middle ground.
And I think another question might be whether siding has been considered as part of the next.
If what?
Siding. So I have spoke with a couple different people about just throwing the option out of siding. They actually have spoke with me about it. And I'll give you my take on it. Again, you do whatever everybody collectively does, but in my opinion, as a guy in the contracting and in the painting world, that if you are first building your home and you decide to put vinyl siding on it, I think it's a great option, honestly. I have vinyl siding on my home. But I think if you have a building that's old, that has material that's failing, and then you cover that with vinyl siding, you now have just created a scenario where you just can't see that the building is still rotting underneath it. It makes it look better from outside. But you can't see not only the aesthetics, but the structural part of it, right? So because we had talked about, well, what happens if we just strip all the siding off and vinyl? That was thrown at me. I guess I don't really know the answer to that. I think that's a collective library as a whole, but I do, one of the questions that I have for the library is, because I don't really know how the funding of the library works, and I know that the library is kind of its own little entity, for lack of a better thought process. They're able to kind of take care of their building and the insides of it and different things. So I'm wondering if there's any way that the library could come up with some funds to put with the town's funds to try to get the building done. Is that anything that's an option that you know?
Well,
of, Cindy?
again, I'm not one of the trustees. so I
Understood.
can't-
But you're pretty knowledgeable about the process, so.
Right. I think bottom line, it's a town building. And the
Gotcha.
town has an obligation
Gotcha.
to maintain its assets. And
Agreed.
that clearly is not being done.
Sure.
So I think for me personally, as a taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Okay.
So they, you may not have the answer. I know they just got historic designation. I mean, is vinyl siding even an option anymore? I don't even know if it is, because it's,
Well. I
that sort of
think-
is taking away from the historic.
No,
Yeah,
they,
right.
Level
Thank you.
one, they received
a
level
level
one historic designation, so some things are still permissible. I don't know if vinyl is, but. The siding is an option. I don't know if they specified which kind, but in the last meeting. I think they really want the project to take place and they want to know how can we work together to try to facilitate it, and they're willing to do what they can.
Good. I mean, I know we have some money for painting. I don't know if it's gonna be enough now, but I mean, I know we had money set aside in capital reserves for painting that building when we set
right,
out.
and I have the capital reserve. as of
Which
the
is
end
gonna
of
going back
May.
into it.
In the government buildings account, there's $154,000. And there is yet to be funding from the most recent town meeting, 40,000.
So it'd be 190,000, but it's not all for that building. It's for all government buildings.
No, I
Yeah.
think it's a
so-
question, what is?
Right.
that for?
I think we'd, it's 74,000 or something like that. It sticks in my mind is what we had designated for painting for that building.
The library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately now it goes beyond.
I'm sure it's
50,
gonna
like I
be.
said.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a fair amount of repair.
I think what we can do, what I can do certainly is get a couple of contractors in to take a look at the structure. Obviously, there's some soffit work that needs to be done. I can see some rot in the clapboards. Those need to be pulled off. You need to kind of actually
Do some prep work.
do, yeah, and the columns are rotten. I mean, the columns, I mean, you can
They replaced?
stick your finger right in
The
them.
base of the columns were replaced.
Yeah, so obviously there's more work than mere painting.
All the columns were replaced. That was my.
Yeah, the columns were cut off a certain amount, but
Right.
I'll tell you, Jack and I personally walked over last week and stuck our fingers right through the bottom of the columns. Pretty sure the bottoms of them are rotted.
So I think if we get an assessment as to what needs to be done and then some options, then we can bring it back to the table and you can see, is there enough money to do whatever you want to do? And you can see what the options are, whether it's replacing the siding and repainting it or
Mhm.
eliminating the damaged area and covering it with a different material. I mean, let's just try to get some qualified contractors in.
I think that would be helpful. I think, I don't want to speak for the trustees, the concern seems to be that maybe the town is not taking it seriously, that it needs to be repaired and hasn't done enough to try to work towards that point.
Yeah.
So I think that would be great if we could do that.
So,
I was just gonna ask the question that Jack just addressed, which is when was the last time, if ever, that the town or someone has done a sort of comprehensive assessment of the building of, it's obviously not just painting, there's obviously some
right,
other work that needs to be done. It also seems to me, in conjunction with that, if you've got that kind of assessment from several different contractors. Part of that, particularly if it's got now a historic designation. Potentially there may be grants that would be available to assist with whatever money the town could put up. To do the work that needs to be done.
And that's a good point. And I believe that someone mentioned potentially L-chip. I think that we
Yeah.
touched on that in the meeting as a possibility to kind of delve into.
I'd like to, I mean, again, there's a really bad taste in people's mouths about what L-chip in a couple cases for
Right.
got in trouble with it, so I just, it's great. It's a great thing in a lot of cases, but especially when it's a.
You just
Such
have
a-
to follow the rules
Right.
after. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you do that, then there's,
Well, we'll just set up some options and then you can choose
That would
from.
be
And
great.
the
Thank you.
options will be what the building needs and then how you're gonna pay for it.
I guess,
Thank you.
another thought process that with the siding, and again, once we get some quotes in, but, just playing around. I hate to see it because it's such a beautiful old building, but if we did side it, maybe we only do the clapboards and leave the corner boards and the soffits exposed, just right to further go, and we'll get to that as we go down the road, but I'm just sitting here trying
Sure,
to,
there's a number of options.
there is, yeah,
And costs associated with each of them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think the roof still leaks from time to time because I was up
Roof
in
leaks.
the top floor
yeah. Every winter,
poking around. There's still a bucket and
If the hatch is not
Hatch.
cleaned out around us, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think we need a
Nice to
top
get
to
that
bottom
fixed.
assessment.
yeah, I agree. Probably gonna bring in some bigger companies, I'm guessing,
Well, I think you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's a multi-category job. It's.
Yeah.
So we'll just go down the road and see where we go.
Thank you.
A couple things, my understanding, when we did that, when we did the library renovation.
Yes,
Yeah,
So that's a rubber roof, OD looks into warranty issues.
yeah, so it's, from my understanding, Philip, it's not the roof itself, it's around the hatch door that goes to get access route, the access hatch.
Okay,
Mike,
and then
pull it.
there's there's lots of updated cladding options. And I would highly recommend you stay away from the conventional vinyl siding. It's all versions.
Mike,
On the primary issue was that the height of the hatchway was too low. So it was replaced, I think 3 or 4 years ago to jack it up another 2 feet. And the bucket's there because nobody ever moved the bucket.
well, it leaked last winter, so, but yeah,
leaked the winter before that too.
Was it shoveled off is the other question.
that is, but with the new crew in town, it did not get shoveled out, but
Well,
still.
those are the two issues. It had to be high enough to lift it. There wasn't anything wrong with the membrane itself.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, so, but we got another. Yeah, so the library was done how long ago, Cindy? 6 years ago now?
the
5 years,
renovation,
7 years ago?
I think it was 10.
It's crazy.
Time to find.
It does. So, that's the 3 years we lost to COVID. So. All right, anything else on that from anybody? No. Sadie for Freight House?
Yes, so representative from Mascoma Valley. For Preservation Network, there we go, MVPN, contacted and want to know if they can open the building to the public during Old Home Days.
So my thoughts on that are if they have somebody there, I don't want it just open for people just crawling around all over it.
Yeah, I don't think they would.
I don't know if it's safe or not, so I mean, if they're willing to be there and do tours, that's fine, but as far as I'm concerned.
Is that what you think, Dan?
I think it's a liability, I guess, I mean. I'm not gonna put up a big fuss about it, but there's a lot of stuff on the building on the ground between the building and the rail trail itself, there's a whole bunch of.
Right up close to the building, the old decking was.
Exactly, so they're just like cement posts that are still sticking up, so I don't know if maybe we. I'm not opposed to it, and I think it would be neat for everybody to see what the building is. So maybe we just think about just roping off that back area so they can't, I don't know, but.
Judith is online.
With that,
Judith is online.
all right,
So, I mean, so Judith, I'm assuming you put the request in. I mean,
somebody.
that would be my concern, is just having somebody there and
Hi.
very contained and.
Yeah.
From a
Hi.
safety standpoint.
Hi, actually, here's Judith.
Just saying anything.
We talked about it at
Is
our
it a
last
town-owned
meeting. that-
building?
It is.
Oh.
And they've been doing
She is, but can't hear her.
improvements.
It's lit. It's lit up.
She's waving.
That's what you were talking about. We can't hear you, so I don't know.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to-
Sorry,
She's unmuted.
Yeah, see, but I think maybe it's something wrong with our microphone on our end,
okay.
because see how she lights up, that means actually talking, but.
Can you hear me now?
Judith, maybe if you could type it in the chat box.
Sure, hold on.
Probably
Yeah.
with our volume. Or something.
I could try to turn up. Oh, okay.
It was
Can-
Melissa Allen that
So-
reached out to me with the request initially. They had wanted to have it
I don't know.
during the fire event too, but. the request got lost. So now they would like to have a public meeting.
I think it's appropriate, but like I
Yeah.
said, as long as it's,
Someone's there and we can rope off that back section maybe or something, just some caution tape or something. But I think it'd be nice for everybody to see what we're doing with the building. All right,
Tom, you're here for new members to Historic District Committee.
Yeah, I'm Tom Milligan. I'm here with my hat on as chair of the Historic District Commission. And we're having some change in membership, change in jobs, change in memberships. We have members, we have we have members, we have alternates, and we have associates. And John Bergeron has been a member of the commission. He's been chair of it, I think, for 18 years, and he may have been a member of it longer than that. Anyway, he's willing and wants to step down from being a member. And we would like to have Chris Walcott appointed as a member in place of John. Chris is a young man, he's an architect, he's lives on the street, and he's been a member of he's been an alternate for, I think, 2 or 3 years. He's a good young man, and we think he'd make a real addition to the membership of the commission. And then if he's approved for the membership of the commission, then we need an alternate. And we'd like to keep John Bergeron on as an alternate, because he has so much institutional history and so much knowledge of the town and of the street that we really value his membership, and he'd make a great advocate or alternate for us. So we'd like to have Walcott approved as a member and Bergeron approved as an alternate if the select board would be ready to do that.
Your motion to accept.
I absolutely, I have a motion to accept. Yeah,
All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I think Chris will be a good addition as well. Yeah, Chris is good.
Bob was coming in for the Gristmill Hill Road posting.
I spoke with him a little while ago. He said he wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we've got the grist mill's got a hole in it, and
Yeah.
it's currently covered up with a 1-inch
Steel.
multi-1,000-pound steel sheet.
Mhm.
We've had some engineers look at it to see how dangerous it is.
Yep.
And we've got a fairly lengthy field report from them.
Yep.
We get copies of it.
I beg we can do that, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, no, we already got copies.
Oh, you already got it. Oh, you
Yeah,
already
we're
got it.
gonna
Okay.
go.
Okay, so the choice really is spend $150,000 on a repair or simply close it until the state queues up this process, because this is on one of the 3 bridges that you're going to be replacing.
Mhm.
It does take several years to do that from this day, to do the engineering, do the design, go through the whole approval process and so forth. And I think there's a pretty serious concern about its strength for any vehicles, let alone an ability to enforce a weight restriction. So I'm not suggesting you need to make a decision. We don't have $150,000 in the budget to repair that.
No.
That $150,000 would basically be wasted by the end of
It's
3 years.
It's not gonna fix the bridge.
It's not gonna fix the bridge. Then you've got 3
Yeah.
basic 3 I-beam spans. The entire middle one is just corroded and it's rotting away.
Yeah.
And you tried to patch it last year, but you can't get to a good edge to secure a patch that has the strength to carry the weight that you'd like it to carry.
Mhm.
And
Kind of floating patches. They're not secured.
yeah, you're just chasing the decay that's underneath that you can't quite see. So I think, at a minimum, I wanted to bring it up today and kind of put it on the radar. We certainly want to get some signs posted for, at least in the moment, weight restrictions.
So we have to order signs because we don't have 3,000 weight limit signs.
Right.
We could put cement blocks there and close the bridge right now or cut it down to 1 lane.
You
You can't
could,
really cut it down to 1 lane, because
Already one lane base.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, but
Where
we
everybody
can stop
runs
trucks
the
from going
straight with
over.
it busted out.
yeah. The only, the problem with the one lane is you don't, if you make it like an 8-foot lane, you're not gonna be able to plow it, so it's.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Do we wait 3 weeks to get signs?
Right.
I mean.
Oh, I
that's what I'm
understand,
talking-
I
do we
understand,
just
yeah,
close-
just close it, yeah.
What are the,
Well, I was thinking that we'd get some daylight on it so that if you decided to close it, the public's got some opportunity and we can begin to put in the newsletter how you get around it and so forth. You guys know that area better than I do, obviously.
what would be alternate routes?
Ballpark.
Ballpark itself.
Which is not a great road.
Ballparks or South Road, right?
Yep. On that bridge, I was over there with the engineers and with the hole is now.
Hmm.
Just beyond it a little ways, there's another spot ready to,
Blow out.
yep.
I'm really
And-
concerned that like a school bus, something gonna go over there and you're gonna regret.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
not good.
No, it's not good. I went underneath and looked at it and sent some pictures. Yeah, it's every bit as bad as I thought and then some.
Right.
We
So-
may have some 3-ton signs. Out back at the old sand shed, hopper shed.
Yeah, that's what they recommended it be
Three
brought
times,
you
so-
until we. can
But I
go.
mean, that's just putting a sign in it, that's not gonna stop a truck from going over it.
Right.
No,
Right.
They're going over, they're going over it now, it's been put down posted, so.
Right.
We did that a year ago, so when the.
Somebody has asked,
Oh.
have you count the number of people who use it?
We have not.
I am not.
We have not.
you know, you got fuel trucks that go up there every
Oh, yeah.
day.
Yeah.
At least there's 3 different companies. A week. They go up through there.
Just curious if the engineer was a state engineer, this is a state bridge, and if not. It should have been an evaluation done last fall, and has it changed dramatically since last fall? Because they.
The state
weren't even
hasn't
willing to post it down.
inspected that bridge in years.
Sorry,
I said the state hasn't inspected that bridge in years.
sorry, but in the file, if you got copies of the annual reports.
We can check, but it really is, I mean, we could check, I mean, they didn't want us to do, they didn't think last year when we had the hole, they didn't think we had to downgrade it from
Exactly.
15,000 down to
15.
10, where would you change it? to?
5 tons, yeah.
Yeah, so New
You might
Hampshire,
have help from the state if you at least got all of the state engineer, because they do look at it every year. There are annual reports in the red list file in the town office with the result. It's about 15 to 20 pages in this report.
so this report says New Hampshire DOT did the bridge inspection September 22nd of 22. But now and it lists, you know, all of the things. The cracking, the rusting, like they said, the patch that's not attached to anything.
They score what type of shape it's in.
Mhm.
You see the score.
The most recent one,
Every annual report has a score.
I
And
don't,
based on that, you downgrade, and they are the ones that actually did the downgrade.
I
Well,
don't see a
I
score.
personally think we should shut the bridge down.
Yeah, I think so too. I
Philip?
mean,
My understanding is the engineering is already started.
We got a whole comprehensive layout of, because I asked for that a few meetings ago when this gentleman was
Yeah,
here.
so Griswold Engineering has
Yeah.
not been started.
It has not.
Because it was the last bridge of the 3 that we're gonna get.
And what are the engineering marks in the road?
Probably from out there looking at it. I don't know 100%. But I do know that even if the engineering is started, that bridge isn't slated to be fixed until 26 or 27.
Maybe it's time to make a phone call, how we have a change in the section.
Let us know how that works out. Because they just, you know, so I said that when they were in here. I was questioning which bridge should have been first on the list. You're in here enough to know, you know that I've questioned the transfer station bridge being the first one several times. And the reason I've questioned it, because Gristmill Hill is the bridge that's the most dangerous as far as braking or not accepting
I
traffic.
go over Gristmill Bridge multiple times a day.
I know you do, Philip, but the response that I get is because of the flooding. The box culverts have to be first because that creates flooding. And then Potato Road after that, then Gristmill. I don't personally see it that way. I think Gristmill Hill Road needs to be fixed first, then the transfer, then Potato.
I'd be
Road. But
going back to them and
then we have a change and.
And
it still doesn't get you, that still only gets you 2 years down the road rather than 3.
Right. So with that said, Philip, let's just say for some odd reason that they agreed and actually answered our phone call and were timely and all that. That bridge still doesn't, if they changed everything and said, okay, as of today, that's our first priority, that bridge still isn't fixed, minimal 2 years. Which is awful. No, I'm not saying you, I'm just having a conversation with you, which is crazy.
Because there are other options to go around, but in the wintertime, in mud season, there is.
I know, you go down through the Gulf, right? Yeah.
Bottom
April.
line,
Yeah.
bottom line, it is unsafe.
Bottom
It is
line,
really
that's
worth
it.
putting up a sign, someone's gonna get seriously hurt or die.
I think it's worth putting up cement blocks across it myself, but that's where I'm at with the bridge. So I don't know, and from what I've read, from what I understand, it's just us sitting here at this table at a meeting, making a motion and saying aye, and the bridge gets
So,
closed,
I
so.
think that we should do that and we should set a date a week or two in advance so that, like you said, we can notify people.
Yeah.
Put it in the Valley News.
Does it also affect the rail trail?
No.
It does not. No. No.
So we have a motion to close Grist Mill Hill Bridge
Effective, what's today?
6th,
So we say the
15th.
17th, 15th?
10 days.
Okay,
July 15th.
all right, so I'll move that we close it effective July 15th.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we can still work concurrently with the state and see if they can.
Sure.
accelerate things.
Yep, no,
Right, if we can move this forward.
we can certainly have that discussion. I know that Bob Cushman's certainly had that discussion with.
Yeah.
With the state. Obviously wasn't part of that, so I don't know how the competing arguments came about.
And they just moved it around to move the transfer station one up just a couple of months ago. They switched our bridges around, they were here.
Yeah.
Another comment online, can the state give opinions on, in this in terms of temporary repair?
They can, but unless they're gonna pay for it, I mean, the temporary repair that was mentioned was $150,000 and
And that was last 5 years.
Cindy,
Well, as part of this closing, will there be an attempt to monitor the traffic, the increased traffic on that road?
on which road? He was on
Ballpark.
Ballpark.
Yes,
We certainly can.
which is very narrow
Yep.
road right now, speeded mightily every day.
Oh, yeah.
And so having more traffic to them.
Is Ballpark the only alternate?
South Road is as well during, I mean, neither of them are great roads, but
No,
Okay.
I mean, or you can go all the way around and get through down, go up over the. So I don't interrupt.
Okay.
Like, I guess. You. You,
Ballpark's gonna need a lot of work, and personally, where I live on Ballpark, I would like to see some sort of at least lining or the wider part way up that hill, because I watch it every day they come down, you sit in the middle of that hill, Cindy, you know. You come to the bottom of the hill, you kind of turn off Route 4 and somebody's sitting right there in the middle of the road trying to move, so we need to do something about some traffic control there.
right, where they enter onto Route 4. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they'll
agree.
come down because they see that as one way where that road is so narrow.
Yeah.
And you
I
gotta
see.
cut a bunch of brush on that road.
I see.
That thing needs to be graded and rolled and.
well, I
pounded
mean, if we got
in.
3 years to upgrade it, then I think we can do something, so.
Even with all that said, I'd still say it's safer to drive on that than it is that bridge.
Yeah, well,
So
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just
Uh,
saying that from my point of
there's
view,
a lot.
it's putting a lot more traffic
It
I
will.
get
on my end of it, but there's a lot of prep that's gonna have to go into it, and it's also gonna be. Not just signs closing the bridge, you're also gonna have to put up detour signs in that.
Correct.
We're gonna put up cement blocks, so.
Yeah.
But no,
Doesn't
he's
matter, you
saying
still
to
have
show
to put up
people.
detour signs.
Oh, I see. Oh, I got you. Okay, I understand. Understood. I just-
So
Okay,
think
no,
about
this
that when
before-
they're ordering yourself.
John, Mike, before I jump in with you, John, any fire issues as far as, since we're talking about it, since you're
No,
here,
we already, our apparatus has not been going over the bridge anyway.
regardless of,
Right,
okay,
because it is unsafe, and I made sure that I put that out again to everybody, so.
Good.
okay.
Yeah, so that's a good idea, actually, to shut it down, the bridge is unsafe, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not nice.
Mike,
You got your fire equipment up there on race days when people are parked on both sides of that narrow road.
Probably.
well,
Probably have put signs up, no parking either side. I don't think it should be a
So-
problem.
we'll talk to Bob and see what has to be done on Ballpark Road to either widen it or, whatever we can do to make it safer through there. If we have to put no parking on the road signs during race days, then we will do that as well.
I think that's what we do. We give the Lions Club, and let them know we can't park on the road because it's a through way now.
I mean, obviously,
It's a work in progress.
Hughes
right?
point and Sydney's point, we're gonna have to do some upgrades on Ballpark just. to make it-
Yeah,
It's gonna be. the main
and I would
road.
imagine height of the land.
It's horrible this spring. I don't know if you ever.
Well,
heard
that's
of it.
Grafton.
It's just.
Oh,
I think Wayne is Grafton.
But we'll force everybody that way.
I was thinking.
Wreck up their roads.
Yeah.
Mike,
Two things. First of all, until November, transfer station bridge was third on the list. So I don't know how it ever got first on the list.
This-
And
this-
First on the list was Potato Road.
The state changed it.
Yeah.
Who did?
The state.
State changed it.
And then the other issue is, I would at least call the state. Because those of you who were around when they did the River Road Bridge. The River Road Bridge had a temporary bridge that the state put in at the state's expense. So they may be willing to do something that's a reinforcement on that bridge under the state grant. And that's an ARPA grant on that bridge, which means that they got plenty of money to do that. So I think it is worth a phone call.
yep, I agree. Concurrently,
Yeah, because that was one of the things that I was wondering is. Temporary bridge or new construction of a bridge, not in that same spot. Cutting off, because I know there's been talk about and with the engineers, I think, for that last end of that hill right there. Having the bridge come across the river a little differently.
I think that got rejected, but I could put trusses across the top and then put connecting underneath the whole thing now.
Yeah.
So I know that they've done it, and they spent something on the order of like 500,000 for a rental bridge
Right,
on River Road when they did it.
where there's next to no traffic.
And that's
you
why
think-
it's called the Borthwick.
Yes.
Memorial Bridge.
I know that when Bob called them to say that there's a hole in the bridge, they said it's their bridge, like, we are not gonna fix the hole. And it was May 16th that the state came and wanted to change the way the order of the bridges. So just.
A comment online and says, yes, given the number of users on Grisno, a temporary bridge may save a lot of trouble.
Agreed.
If you can get
Yeah,
one.
and Jack, can you reach out to them and
Oh,
ask
sure.
them what the process is to bump and maybe having them evaluate which bridge gets done first? Based on the fact that we're gonna close that one maybe, or something along those lines.
It can't hurt that.
Right,
Jack, there's a new name that's running bridges as of last September. They can't use the names in there, just call state DOT and ask for the bridge supervisor.
Can you just confirm, you say 17, you said 15 and
50.
15.
And I don't know if it's feasible. I know we send that townwide email out, but pretty obviously, people only read certain parts of it. Does it make sense to get some signs made and put them at the bottom of the bridge? It says, as of blah, blah, bridge is closed. So the people that are going up and down there every day.
This Kelly with the Valley News is on via Zoom. Maybe Liz can help us.
Maybe Liz could put it in the Valley News. But I think we should get some signs for each side of that bridge or something.
we can try.
I know,
I mean, it's a 3-week process. to
I
get
know,
signed,
that's
so,
why I chuckled. when I
Yeah,
said it, like we wanted to sign it
Yeah.
till after.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, the 15th
There you
is
go.
only 7 business days away, so.
Yeah, probably not.
To get
Yeah,
one-way signs for School Street, it was
I know,
3
man.
weeks, so.
that's why I
Yeah.
just,
Do we have to have private signs though?
Dan was saying, a sign saying, we're gonna be closing the
Right,
bridge for
can
the
we get a
15th.
sign? You can order that from Joey Taker, have it the same day.
They'll let us have a song.
right,
Put one of those big billboards.
All right, we'll look into that.
Well, if we run out of, if we don't have time by the 15th, we can always extend the closing date till we're ready.
Yeah. I don't want to be the one that the truck goes through after on the 17th.
no, I don't either. No,
we do have somebody online that lives on Griswold, and she's stating it's a good detour route if they must.
Well, we've got three, so you pick which one works best for you. That's where we're at.
Yeah,
I agree.
I know I mentioned several times about branches being cut on the left-hand side, west side of Route 4 there. It's in the state right away. It should be up to the state to trim that brush back. Shouldn't
Gotcha.
where about?
be up to the town to do it.
Right at the
It's
end.
right by that brown house.
Oh, right there.
You pull down there, you can't see west
Right.
until you're out in the road.
At the end of the ballpark, you mean?
No,
Oh.
yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
yes,
all right.
that would have to be done before you really.
Yeah, there's gonna be a few
Football
things, for sure. All right,
Dan, you mentioned three options. So far, I know Ballpark Road, South Road.
Height of land. through,
Height-
Height
of-
of land,
yeah, heights of the land.
takes you up through Grafton, but
Yeah.
brings you back down to Route 4. And,
And then the other one's Lock Haven, Spectacle Pond to Griffinall.
oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
yeah. No,
That's-
no, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, Mike.
Nice.
On a related highway topic, hopefully it's quick. I represent the Mascoma Valley Cooperative Park, the trailer park. And they would like at their expense to put in 2 speed bumps on Smith Drive. And the question is, would you be willing to let us do that? We'll take them up in the fall and put them down in spring.
Where is Smith Drive?
South and South
the
Road.
actual trailer.
So where it's the driveway into the trailer park?
It's funny, that's a town road that goes in there. When you come off South Road, the town road comes in and goes out to those houses out back, but all the offshoots are not town road.
Yep.
So, weird. Do you guys want that whole road? Any chance?
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that, because I don't think you heard the question right, because you didn't answer it.
But we would like to put the speed bumps on,
Yeah.
otherwise one of our tenants will probably start shooting cars.
I'm okay with the speed bumps. You're paying for it, you're putting them down and taking them up.
We're paying for it, we'll
What are the dates that you would install and remove them? What,
take it.
a commitment to remove them by?
And we get to probably the 1st of May and probably the 1st of November.
Yeah,
If
when,
you want the 1st of October, we'll do the 1st of October.
Or we
There are only 4 or 5 people in there that decide to go 50 miles an hour down that road. And we try and encourage them quietly, and that's not working, so we figured we'd take out the back end of the car.
so what the heck are you gonna do? That's the question.
I've already
He's one of them.
re-educated.
Nice. Yeah,
Told that I have to drive 18 miles an hour.
Yeah. or else.
So May 1st to October 1st?
Well, Dale, when do they put them on, like, Hill Court? When do you know the dates? Or here?
No, it's,
When is the parking ban in town? What months are the parking ban? There's a parking ban for winter, so how about if by the parking ban, they're up, right? Does that make sense?
You get early snowstorms sometime, you don't wanna have a.
No, I know, so,
Let me tell you something, speed bumps really don't work anyways, Mike, so you might as well save your money, so.
I didn't make this decision, it was opposed to the park. So, if you went with the 1st of May and the 1st of November, that should protect you. If you wanna go earlier, go with the 1st of October. That'd be okay too.
May and November works for me. And if we get a freak snowstorm, get out there and pull them up real
Yeah.
quick. Yeah,
Just drive.
or these guys will pull them up for you with a plow.
And online, Liz provided her direct line and phone number for contact.
Thank you.
Do we have to vote on that, or?
I guess so.
All right, I'll move that we allow them to put up speed bumps from May 1st to November 1st.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You want to talk to us about the old landfill?
Well, apparently you have an old landfill. You closed it up back in the 80s.
Yep.
And there's a statute that requires an annual post-closure report submitted to the state. And I guess after 25 years, they've realized they never sent you the forms, so. We finally got it and they want to know. So I don't know what it
So
means.
just to be clear, this is on Zani's land?
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I thought.
Actually,
Well, it's on town land now. Used to be, but you've swapped some land. with him, so you own the land now.
Great.
So
perfect.
obviously it's been decades.
So
And,
20+ years of no
yeah.
annual reports.
So we'll see where it goes.
Okay,
That's all. I'm just kind of letting you know that's a heads up.
excellent.
Worst case scenario is you might have to fence it in someday, do a few more water samples. There are 6 groundwater monitoring wells up there that never yielded anything
Okay, well, that's good.
troublesome. So
Mike,
every time the property, I think Mac Woods, is that where Mac Woods was?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Every time that property sells, the town has tested the water and it's been tested, I think, 4 or 5 times in the last 10 years. And there's never anything in the water sample. And if you go to the one-stop system for DES, you'll see that this communication, it's buried in there, but it's in there where the state signed off on not have us to report anymore. And it was determined not to any longer be required to do anything on that landfill. And I think there are copies of that in their files as well, but it's in the one-stop program. So there is no obligation to file anything or do any monitoring or do any closure or anything else.
okay. I'm gonna zip off, I'm gonna hold off on Todd for a second and just do playground equipment. We did pull out all the pieces of playground equipment out of the highway department did. So I know Robin Dow is working on trying to raise some money to get another piece in there to replace that, but she is working on that, so along with some stuff like common that she's gonna come talk to us about at some point, but
Great.
so there should be nothing unsafe in the playground anymore, which is a
Great.
good thing, so.
Great.
Todd?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got 2 more questions.
Oh, good. Just wondering if I could get something in before you go to the lengthy ones.
Yep.
This is for the health center. This is, we're in the process of completing the transaction to, have the operation of the health center go to Health First out of Franklin, New Hampshire. It's been a lengthy process. It started in June of last year. And it's hopefully will be done by the 1st of September. We need one copy of things. And as part of the process, we have to have HRSA approval. That's Medicaid approval. And there's a process for doing that. It requires a support letter from the community. So all those words on the top part of that is what the normal letters to go out. We had to have them from Hitchcock, Alice Peck Day, and from everybody else in the world. And what we need is a letter that's as close to verbatim as you can get, is the yellow thing on the backside. And what it does is it says basically the health center is helpful to the community and it needs to have the designation in order to be able to continue to be helpful. So what it really means is once the HRSA approval takes place, which is supposed to be in August, it will result in about $1 million a year in new funding for the health center, which will put in a pharmacy, expand the dental program to twice the size, put in behavioral health, and that's all funded by Medicare and Medicaid funding. So it's vitally important to the health center to get that funding. The only way to get it under the federal rules is to have an existing federally qualified health center as the operator. So we've gone through this process to do that. And the letters are due by the 15th of the month. Unfortunately, you had a meeting tonight, so I came in and asked if I'm asking if you would submit a letter that's similar to what's on the second page, the yellow stuff. There's no obligation on anything under that. It's just a letter saying, yeah, it's a good idea. And that's why I also put in the annual report. So you can see that we have now 55, it's actually going to be, it's almost 5,800 patients. And when we reopen the dental practice, we'll add about another 2,000 patients to the health center. And of the visits we had, 48% of them were from last year, 48% of them were from the town of Canaan. So it is an important facility for a bunch of people, about 1 out of every 2 households in the town of Canaan are using it. And it's also important because of all the cost savings. There's a sliding scale system, an employer system, and then Medicare and Medicaid, which many doctors aren't taking. And when we reopen the dental practice in September, which is our goal, we'll actually have a good chunk of it that will be Medicaid funded health dental care in the dental practice. And we're one of the very few dental practices that have it. And the last point on that is we're about to change the practice dramatically and go to a full digital practice. And what that means is, among other things, that if you need a crown or a cap or anything like that, we can make it the same day. We actually go in and use a full digital system to 3D print the crown and the cap, or cut the crown and the cap so it's a perfect fit. And it's a big change. I think there's only one other practice in the Upper Valley that has it. So I would ask your support by giving us that letter. It needs to be on a town letterhead. That's it. And then, I think I'm done.
Okay. We need to vote on that. We want to read it.
Yeah. Bring it over.
We really until the 15th, so. We have a meeting between that.
Is this something that we need to have a vote on?
It must be a signature from somebody.
So,
I think it's an invaluable service to our community. I would make a motion that we offer this letter. It doesn't obligate us to anything, like Mike said. It's just,
yeah, there's no obligations, just saying that the administration or the municipality thinks that it is an important, valuable for our community, right?
which it definitely, in my opinion, is.
I think so too.
Yep.
Yep. So I would second Sadie's motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mike.
Jack, but get you tomorrow. We'll go with that.
I'll send that letter to you, Jack, electronically.
Okay.
Todd, you want to come up? We asked Todd, he's the assessor for the town of Canaan. Independent assessor for the town of Canaan, and just try to get a handle on what you do and get some description on what you, how you get to some of your decisions.
So my name's Todd Haywood. I'm the principal for Granite Hill Municipal Services. Thank you for having me tonight. So the selectmen, the board of selectmen are the statutory assessors for the town. I function as your subject matter expert, so to speak. Often refer to myself as the assessing agent. So we can only do what the legislature's empowered us to do by law. So that's pretty much how I try to operate, is under the law. There is, it's open to interpretation, but for the most part, it's routine annual maintenance. Every year the law says you have to inventory your taxable property as of April 1st. So we do that through the pickup system. Pickups is the building permits, and if there's anything that was unfinished or that's come to our attention that's ongoing, maybe doesn't have a permit, we would take a look at those too, to just keep the inventory, so to speak, up to date. You're bound by constitution and statute to revalue the entire town at least once every 5 years. But if the statistics go outside the acceptable range, you may see yourself doing that sooner. And this market's been that way, but that still remains to be seen. And we do a ratio study annually for the Department of Revenue. They take all the properties that sold and they compare the selling price to the assessed value. And that's where they come up with an equalization ratio you may see me write about in abatements and whatnot. And that's where that comes from. The time period that they look at for that is the date of appraisal is always April 1st. So they go back 6 months to October 1st of the previous year and forward to September 30th of that year, just to kind of balance the time frame. And then we annually accept applications for personal exemptions. The solar is, I think, a fairly new one in this town. The veterans, you have to do that, and you're higher than the minimum, so you're there. The elderly, you have to do that, but you can go higher, and you're higher than the minimum there. those are the main exemptions. You could do a disabled, and I'm not sure off the top of my head if this town adopted that. You would have to adopt that at town meeting. And then there's also a deferral, so a senior or someone that was disabled getting Title II or Title 16, Social Security could qualify to have their taxes deferred at a lower interest rate, but the town would take a lien on that at 5% interest as opposed to the 8% that they charge for being delinquent now. And that's an annual thing. The personal exemptions are permanent. They stay with the property until the owner changes. The institutional exemptions are annual, and the BTLA and the Department of Revenue has taken a much more strict stance on the filing and timing and the follow through of those. That was last year as a result of a case that has been ongoing in Ossipee. And so the DRA, Alphabet Soup, has decided that they're going to look back 5 years for those A9s and A12s, which is the A9 is the annual application for all the institutional exemptions. The A12 is just for the charitables, and that's the financial statement. And those are due, the A9 is due every year by April 15th, and the A12 is due by June 1st. So June 1st is late, technically speaking.
So you said there are personal exemptions. What was the terminology for the other one? Personal.
Institutional exemptions.
So what is it?
Those are your religious, charitable, and educational.
Okay.
And they have to apply every year for
Understood.
those.
Yeah.
So that's all pretty much the routine things that we do. This town is also doing a cyclical database maintenance, we like to call it, where you're looking at 20 to 25% of the properties in town, whether they had a building permit or not. We basically take a tax map and go up one side of the street and down the other and just verify that the data is correct and up to date. And because you're working with a computer assisted mass appraisal software is the Avatar system. So that's basically a database. And if you have good data, your assessment should be pretty good. If you don't, then it won't be so good. So that's the reasoning behind that. There is no legal mandate for that, but there is some precedence in the courts. If you go too long, Board of Tax and Land Appeals may order you to do a full measure and list, which would get expensive, because if they order you to do anything, a lot of the additional rules kick in. They're usually just guidelines until you're ordered, and then they're mandatory, and that's what causes extra time and money. So that's I mean,
Do you think there's been an increase in people requesting abatements, or? I
no,
mean, it seems like,
not too many.
no.
I mean, the year after
Haven't only been doing this here.
in this town, 2018. It was 2018. So I was here for a couple of years before your reassessment. And you would expect after the reassessment, a higher volume because they're all values anew. And we dealt with that last year, and there's still a few this year, but not that many. There wasn't really that many last year either, considering it was 2,500 parcels.
So is that about how many separate parcels there are? It's 25.
Right, in town here. So I would definitely entertain questions if I haven't covered anything.
So,
I've got two questions regarding the institutional. Obviously, there's a range in terms of those not-for-profit religious educational, a range in terms of the size of the organization, the ability to, understand what's required. There may be some smaller organizations. So I'm wondering, A, what kind of notice is provided to people to alert them to the deadlines for filing annually, since they do have to file? And there may be some smaller not-for-profits that have some turnover, maybe they're not
Right.
aware. So first question is, what kind of notification is there? Second is, does the select board, understanding that it's state regulations, does the select board or the state, is there an ability, if you miss the deadline, is there an ability for waiver, some sort of
So there is, the first answer is there is no requirement to notify annually. The expectation is that the institutions know that has to happen since it's an annual event. Some towns do send out notifications, and I think it's not a bad idea. I don't know that this town's done it because of the turnover. Mike, you might be able to answer that one.
No, not to my knowledge. I don't think we've ever sent out a notice. You know,
If I were to recommend a policy, I would say March 1st, send a letter to everyone that had been receiving it, reminding them if you wanted to do that. And there aren't that many, and then the ball's in their court. So with this
I
awesome,
mean, for example, forgive me for interrupting.
No problem.
For example, I would assume the school district has the personnel to be able to recognize they've got to file something on an annual basis, but there may be some smaller organizations that don't.
the government doesn't have to file.
Okay, well,
But the smaller ones, yes, they could. And then as far as the exception would go, it would be accident, mistake, or misfortune for the A9. That provision isn't in the law for the A12 yet, and that may change next year, as I understand. But the thing is
let's refresh my memory again, the A9 versus the
the A9 is the annual application that all the religious, all the educational, that are private educational, and all the charitables have to file. They have to file that. Though the religious and the educationals don't have to give us financials, but the charitables do. We can ask for the financials, and if they don't give it to us, then part of this whole OSFI thing is they say you shall deny it if you ask them for something and they don't give it to you. And I've always taken the approach over the years that, day late, it's not that big of a deal, but it's become a bigger deal between the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, BTLA, and the Department of Revenue, TRA. So they've actually come down pretty hard on the town of Ossipee, and consequently the assessors are now starting to pay a little closer attention. There was a couple other cases. Alton had one that they were exempting, and Center Harbor had one that they were exempting. In both those cases, the Board of Tax and Land Appeals said that they didn't qualify for whatever reason. In Ossopee's case, they made them, they wanted a policy, which isn't a problem. So we created a policy, and I would recommend using the same policy if that's what you choose to do. They wanted annual inspections of these institutional exemptions, or that we're seeking the exemption to make sure they're using the entire building for their stated purpose. And I think that in my personal opinion, I'd like to see that part of the law a little more clear. The Department of Revenue has administrative rules. These particular rules are called the 400 rules, and they define accident, mistake, or misfortune. And they say that that forgetting that doesn't count. It's well, actually I have the definition as they put it. It says Rev 401.01. So the first one of the definitions is accident, mistake, or misfortune means something outside a person's control, or something which a reasonably prudent person would not be expected to guard against. And they have said that I forgot, or I was too busy. That doesn't rise to the accident, mistake, or misfortune. And they probably have said something to that effect in these Ossipee orders. They also said in the Ossipee decision that you can't use RSA 7616 to circumvent the exemption laws, because that's happened too, for good cause, the good cause part of that. And that was they tried to tighten that up and at least define it a little bit more, but that didn't make it out of committee. So they're still leaving that vague. That was the legislature's will this last session.
What is that RSA?
7616.
Yeah,
That's the appeal.
okay.
So the 16.1 is where it says for good cause, the selectmen or their predecessors can abate for good cause any tax levied by them or their predecessors. And then the next Roman numeral 2 is where, if you feel you're aggrieved, you have until March 1st to apply to the selectmen and not after, and you can only go back that 1 year. Whereas if you found that someone had escaped taxes, you have until March 31st of that year to assess it. Because the tax year ends on March 31st, so you have the end of the tax till the tax year if you find from November to March 31st that someone didn't get taxed or whatever. So the interesting thing with this Ossipee, which I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but there were 4 churches. And they've been churches for 100 years. We know people go to church there on Sundays, every Sunday. And there was the Humane Society that filed their A12 after June 1st. So in February of this year, BTLA ordered the town to send them tax bills for the entire year because they either didn't give us their articles of incorporation as they wanted us to have on file, or they didn't completely fill out the A9, as you said. And I figured that always, you might find a smaller organization may have some turnover, and you might find that you have a person that's not really used to doing that type of thing. And I tried to bring that to their attention, and it didn't go over very well. So that's that. Yeah, they've been pretty unkind to me in their writing. So, and I actually did tell the town it stemmed from exempting a Masonic lodge, which I told them for 10 years not to do. And they did it anyways, and someone else filed a complaint at the BTLA, so that opened that can of worms.
If I may, and this is less for you, sir, than for the board. Understanding the state law regarding reassessment every 5 years. We all know what's happened with real estate in the last few years. And so I'm just gonna again sort of put in your court. I think this board and this town needs to do a much more aggressive job of pursuing commercial, retail, light industrial to take some of the burden off of homeowners, off of residential properties. People are getting crushed out there, and there are a number of people who are going to get priced out of their homes, going to get priced out of Canaan based on property tax increases that have nothing to do with more services that are out of your control, but that have everything to do with market increases. And people watch the value of their homes, watch the property tax increase come, and it doesn't make them feel more wealthy. It just makes them feel it's like I've got a bigger burden in June and December. So I know this board has got a lot on your plate. I will just say again, I think some sort of focus, whether it's a separate committee or some sort, but I think we need to sort of think about how are we going to do a better job of marketing Canaan? How are we going to do a better job of bringing in kind of commercial, retail, light industry that helps create a cushion for residential homeowners?
How do we keep the businesses that we already have?
And how do we keep the businesses that we already have? That's right.
That's kind of a planning thing, I think, but there are laws that you can that are local option that you can adopt an incentive for commercial construction, and usually on a 5-year, you can give them a discount for 5 years if on the difference, the increase in the
We've
value.
had that in the past, I know.
Yeah.
Those offers out there in the past, so.
But that would have to be adopted at town meeting.
Yeah.
Todd, I had a question. What, did somebody else have something? Had a question for you that I have been getting asked a lot, so I figured I'd ask you here in a public session. Why does it's seemingly, and it may just be to these people, right? But these people are important. Why does it seem like mobile homes got such a heavy increase in taxes?
So the law says we have to value at least once every 5 years to market value. And what we saw this past time around was over time, different properties change in value at different rates. And what we saw was the lower valued properties increased at a higher percentage everywhere over the last 5 years. So those mobile homes, what may have been valued at $35,000 in 2016, we're selling for $125,000, $150,000, $200,000. So it's just a reaction to the market, and that's pretty much what any of us would do in a revaluation year is react to the market. And everyone's supposed to be within 10%. And with the commercial properties, I don't know if this is germane, but commercial properties don't go up and they don't go down as much as residential real estate. It's always been the way because those are businesses and oftentimes income valued. or the value is generated because of the income producing part of the property. But yeah, so it's unfortunate, but in 5 years, just like it always happens, the lower price properties, mobile homes will probably go down faster than the rest of the town. Condos are similar, that type of thing. You don't really have too many condos here, but the mobile homes did see a big increase, and that's because people are saying they're paying what they're paying for them.
Right, and in layman's terms, that's because somebody can come in and this property really is worth about 100,000, but I want that property because I want to live in Canaan, so I'll pay you 300,000 for it.
Well,
And then away it goes, right? And that's how those all get assessed.
and there were some properties out there in the 21 reassessment that, I wasn't just, I was trying to use the software model, and you're always going to have outliers for whatever reason. So I'm not going to chase an outlier just to hit the sale price. There were some, no one's turning down the extra $50,000 that people are paying them over asking price either. So what are you going to do?
Right.
It's just the way it is. I mean, it's been routine the last few years to write in an escalation clause in these purchase and sale contracts. It's going to change. It's just a matter of when. I had some sales that I was just shaking my head at. I couldn't believe what people were paying. No views, no water. I mean,
Insane.
yeah.
On the Ossipee case, as it turned out, I was actually in the legislature when it came up.
Yeah.
Committee. And a number of people from municipalities said that they believed it was appropriate to leave it alone and not. The key thing is the abatement was not the same as an exemption for a nonprofit. It's a determination by the board that there is some good cause for reducing the tax assessment on the property, or the tax on the property. And the strong advocacy in the legislature was against Ossipee was that they never did it in public. They always did it behind the scenes, did it by secret, no secret, anything. They just did it. They didn't have a vote. They never discussed it. And that clearly is illegal under the law. And that was a major problem for Ossipee. But on the other side, most of the other towns and cities that were there testified that, if you're going to give any type of abatement because the property is essential to the community and it's nonprofit by most standards, not necessarily 501c3, that then there is an ability for the town to do that, but it has to be in open session, has to be discussed, and I think that has happened here in the past with some of the properties. It happened with the Masons. I think it happened with Fishing Game and a couple of others, but I don't remember exactly who it was. But there is a reason for doing it, and I'm glad you hear you say about the definition for the idea of a waiver on the ability to file after the fact. We had a case here a couple of weeks ago on that. And, I'm hoping that the board will understand that there was a good faith belief that had already been done for them because they already had the credit and it's gonna roll into it. But that's a few folks. But in any event, there is a condition where you can have somebody that's doing something. Let us say a daycare center is just not even a formal 501c3. So there might be a reason why a community wants to give them a tax break on the property. And that's what the law has been used for. And it's not just the Ossabees of the world, it's major cities and their communities throughout the state. It's evidenced by the fact that overwhelming vote by the committee was to do that.
Oh, I'm sure that's been going on for years, but the BTLA specifically said you can't use 7616 to circumvent 7223.
I don't think you can, but I think that you can do an abatement, not to say what you're referring to, which is the exemption.
I think Ossipee settled that themselves, and we're here to talk about Canaan.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, but you've got other properties that fit that bill.
Yeah.
And they are here, and they have been getting that type, not of an exemption, but of an abatement.
Did anybody else have any questions for Todd while we're here? This is the time. Everybody's always asking us. We brought him to you. Don't ask me anything else then. You're all done. I've answered your questions through the man himself, so. I don't have anything else. I don't know if you guys do.
Todd, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we can have further discussion and I agree with Mike, that should be done in public. You know, barring the exceptions from 91A, but personal or, you know, financial and that type of stuff. But
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate you taking the chance on coming in tonight. Thank you, Todd.
I didn't even have time to put my milk-bone underwear on, so.
Have a good night, man. Thank you.
Chief Porter. Yeah, talk about locks for this building.
Sure, I was asked to come up with an estimate. Get an estimate, so I got two. There's a real need for security in our building now, and it seems as though this room is being utilized at least a few times a week now, which I encourage and I support that. But along with that, it comes at a risk of something being stolen from our building or damaged in our building, and I need to protect that. And so the way for me to do that is to have a lock system put on this door, which is not cheap, unfortunately, but it allows me to have software access, which gives me audit trails, who comes in, who goes out. It allows me to maintain who gets codes, who doesn't get codes, but I can do it from my computer. As it is now, we have keys. CJIS, which is the Criminal Justice Information System, requires that my building remains secure at all times. And that means if an employee is fired, state police employee, sheriff's department, probation and parole, they come in and out of here, town employees, selectmen, if you depart from your position on the town, it requires that I change the code and change the keys every single time. Now I can access this lock system online and I can actually change the code.
With the new lock system, you mean?
Yep, and I can deactivate that person's code. So each employee would get a separate code and I can deactivate it. I don't have to pay to.
It's numerical code, it's not a fob or anything like that.
It is a numerical code right now, but it has the ability to be upgraded to key access. Each door is about $1,000 to do it, so it's not cheap. If we did it for this door in particular, I know that you guys would like access for meetings. It's $2,000 to do just this door here.
With the software to back it up.
With the software. So the software is about 800, the lock is about 800, 900 bucks. And then there's some labor and retrofitting expenses that come along with that. If we do it with one door, my goal and my hope is that I can find grant money or state matching money. They have some, they call it building hardening money, I think it's called, and they do like a 50-50 match. There may still be money out there right now, I don't know, but I think in the future, it would be nice to continue adding on to at least the primary doors for the building.
If this door is locked, do we have access to the rest of the station if we get in?
No, you just, but
I don't know.
you don't, no.
Okay.
Once you access this building, obviously we have over $100,000 in equipment in here, and we need to protect that too. My garage and facilities and.
It would be that door only. And then.
But we could secure have the EOC secure with just one of these locks. That's
Correct.
what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it would allow us to
jeopardize any
add-
of your other rooms that you have access to. Right. Okay.
So it is a little bit of an expense up front, but
So that's actually similar to the system that we were hoping to look into, right?
I asked you to see if Quinbridge had anything available.
he doesn't
He
do that.
doesn't do anything at all. Okay.
The first estimate I got was 1,500 just for the lock. This second estimate was $867 for the lock, and then I asked him for the software package because that's really important to have. Otherwise, I have to run out and change the code manually out here, whereas I can manually or do it by my computer with the package.
Did you talk with Enfield to see who installed theirs? Because they use
Hatfield,
similar
I think, did
system.
all their stuff.
Okay, did we get a quote from them?
No. But I won't say it's gonna be more, but I think it'll be more. But I will.
Is, if we don't have a bunch of initial funding and we're hoping that there are hopes that we can get some funding or at least 50-50 match. Would it work for you to start with the hardware and the installation? And for now, we may have to change it manually a few times until we can come up with some funding to get that software and go further with another lock. I know, a pain in the,
Yeah, I think it would allow us to at least do it temporarily.
right, I know it's not best case scenario, but we don't have a bunch. of
So is that
So-
the one you looked at? Does it allow you to enter individual codes individually on the lock panel without the software?
Yes,
Okay.
he could come out just for this one, right, while we're getting up and running just for this room. And then maybe before or as we start to implement it into other doors. Then we agree we'd have to do it with that software.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that the software is out of a question this time.
The one thing it won't allow,
I saved it.
the one
Oh,
thing
wait,
it won't
he
allow
said-
me to do is an audit trail, and that's
Gotcha.
important.
So audit trail,
It means that I can tell who's been in and out of the building, who came here last, who came here at 3 o'clock.
so that's kind of one of the most important part of the
Yes.
thing. So, okay, all right.
So I have questions. I know that the cost savings that you found on the cruisers can't be recouped because that's a capital reserve, but there were other cost savings, like on uniforms, was it?
Yes,
You saved
And
a ton.
those are in the general fund, so if there's excess funds from that, can't that be allocated? What was the savings on the uniforms?
they gave me a $700 customer appreciation credit, so it just didn't come out of my budget.
Right, so that's, okay, and then what about the funds for cameras that you were able to?
So that I acquired the cruiser cameras and the body cameras, and that would have. It's around $35,000 to $40,000 had we gone out and bought all of those cameras systems.
And was that in your budget to be purchased
No.
this year? It
No.
was not, right? But the last savings was the uniform.
Yeah, the seven.
Yep. So if that just didn't come out of your budget, can you use that from your budget towards these locks?
If I could,
Yeah. That's in-
Is it available?
it is right
It
now.
is. So maybe we can do a 50-50 match.
I
You
mean,
know?
that's what I think we should do, because I mean,
Something
we're asking for access to this room more often. So I think the
Yeah.
town should come up with the cost of the locks. Ryan's department should come up with the cost of the software to support it. So that's about half.
Kind of where I was headed with it too. We'll pull the lion's
That'll
share of
allow
it
you
out
to
of our,
expand it
you know,
when you can put it in next year's budget and expand as you can, so
that seemed reasonable.
get it past the budget committee.
Yeah, I think Ryan has done a phenomenal job of
Yeah.
saving us money in many different areas.
yeah.
And this is not a want, it's a need.
Right,
So, yeah,
exactly. It
we're
isn't.
doing everything that we can to.
And I wish that I was a little more computer savvy and had my emails in front of me, but just for everybody who's sitting in the room, I couldn't. There are enough of them at this point where I can't even list them off to you one after another. That Ryan sends us emails where he's saving us money. He's digging in, he's doing some footwork, he's putting in some grants, he's negotiating, he's talking to this person. He's going over here, say, hey, I know you guys. These are not working for you anymore, but it's just what we need. What do you think? So, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And because of that, we can get some locks.
And you don't get to spend it elsewhere.
So back to save it, right?
I just got buttons. Yeah, I guess I'll buy it.
Yeah, thank you.
So Jack,
I think we can make that work.
so you've got one more thing about software that you want to discuss?
Thank you,
Um,
Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, I do want to talk about upgrading the general ledger, accounts payable, bank reconciliation and the purchasing. Software, it's very antiquated. It's not going to be supported going forward. It's DOS based, which goes back a long way. And it's just really,
Even Philip's laughing about that.
yeah, no, it's. And so I have a proposal. I'll leave you. I'm not necessarily looking for a decision
Right.
tonight, but I've got some information on costs, the modules that your new finance manager would like to buy. She has experience with it, which is fortunate. So we save a little money on transition and training.
Absolutely.
And then next year, we would add another module for full hosted installation and some annual support stuff that just will recur from year to year.
And will this still be through Twin Bridge or will it be a whole different group that's managing?
This will be through
the company?
MRI.
MRI.
Is their software that they have for municipalities. I had nothing to do with it.
I personally don't mind the sound. Interesting, yeah, works for me.
And you.
But it's the initial cost in this calendar year will be about 28,875, which pales next to a couple of locks, which I'm happy to go 50-50 on.
Okay,
And next year, we would add basically about another $7,350 to the finance budget to maintain some of the ongoing stuff.
Oh, I see, not 70, not on top of the 28.
yes.
No, that,
That would
well, this is gonna buy us the
Mine.
4 modules, the software license,
Yeah,
conversion and setup, and a prorated hosting for the remainder of this year,
and then next year's money will be how much?
7,350.
All right, so not on top of the 20.
No, you buy the software and you
Okay.
renew the licenses. And I have a way to pay for that.
Hang on, Sal. This is the important.
No,
Yeah.
Because as it happens, the bad news is we don't have as many employees as we'd like to have. The good news is we've saved a fair amount of health insurance money by not having those. And so at this point, we're projecting to have about 50,000 remaining in the health insurance account. And I'm also seeing that it looks as though we'll have $6,500 unspent in the unemployment and workers' comp lines, again, because of our claims history and just our employment compensation
And that's
lines.
not assuming we're gonna keep those positions open for the end of the year.
That's correct.
If we
If we-
fill them right now,
If we fill them right now, we'll still
okay.
not have expended 6 months worth of health insurance. But it's all, I'll transmit this to you, this.
Can I see I mean, I don't know if Carrie Ann can do it, but can she give like a pros and cons of what she's working with right now? Because for me, I've
Sure.
heard horror stories of BMSI.
Yep.
But Gloria assured us it was the best thing in the world, next to sliced bread, so.
So I wouldn't mind seeing some comparison, but quite honestly, talking to Twin Bridges and Jack some and a little bit with Carrie Ann, I think it's time for an upgrade.
Well, I'm not disagreeing.
We've got stuff that even Hugh and Philip are laughing at. That's, yeah, I know you're not, but yeah,
I mean, yeah, I hear you that, in this whole software upgrade and everything too, and Carrie is new and getting into it, but. Looking at softwares down the road and it may be in there already, but as simple as. Being able to track our paid time off right onto a check stub and stuff and not waiting towards the end of the month when somebody, Carrie Ann's new, so she's like. With this, but that's one of the positive things, and I was talking to her one day about that. I happened to be out in the office, saying something. I had an invoice in my hand. I was taking out for a guy. He's like, it's antiquated. It's just so user friendly that it just costs too many labor hours to deal with this thing the way we're doing it. On not just her end.
As
everybody
a whole.
else's end,
right,
and the whole thing.
yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, Jack, the 28 is for the initial buy on the software package and the module, and the 7,250 is for another module, is that right?
The
73.
the 28,875 is the 4 modules. So the general ledger report module is 9,250. The accounts payable is 4,700. The bank reconciliation is 4,750. The purchasing and invoice approval module is 5,250. The software license total apparently is 24. With some money for setup and conversion, so
Where's the
Again,
discount for having you here? too?
You're getting it right now. Yeah.
That's for another module next year.
The 7350 is the annual support maintenance upgrades of 5,850. And the fully hosted installation of 1,500.
Which, I mean, we're paying BMSI annual.
You are paying PMSI, yeah,
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
ongoing every year.
it is.
Correct, okay.
Yeah, so some of these expenses will swap out. We will continue to actually use the payroll services with BMSI apparently. At our cost of 2,263 with some additional hosting stuff. But again, I'll let Carrie Ann kind of speak to that when you've had a chance to look at this and raise some questions.
Great.
We can have an opportunity for you to meet with her and
Yeah, and I
Kick
think
that
that would
around.
be an eye opener with a few conversations that I've had and kind of going to what you said, and a lot of people. There's a lot of having to go to the office to check on certain things that you could look right at your paycheck stub when you see it. So the man hours alone. Of Carrie Ann or anyone sitting in that chair. Responding to the person that's come from their workstation there, man hours alone would be a pretty good savings.
That's because all our people work in 7 different departments.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
you're right. Obviously, there's a lot of people running around with pieces of paper, handing them and putting in boxes and then manually entering them in various stages. So it's a very archaic.
Yeah.
System. And so it seems as though you have an opportunity to do things a little bit better.
Thank you. You know, we've been talking about that. So appreciate it. Any other business?
One online, Stella is asking, was there a reason why the board skipped over the old home day concerns that was on the agenda?
The concerns were brought up by Helen Rock and I talked to her last week and we came to agreement and she actually called the office today and said she didn't want to pursue it any further. So it was just concern on where things can be set up and, you know, the change in ownership of some of the properties downtown is sort of, you know, making things, we have to change how we do things for old home days. So I don't think it's anything that's insurmountable and she agreed. So.
I had a couple of things. One minute.
You?
So this is gonna lead into a couple things.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Stella.
The first thing is just the clarification on what we're doing with the cruisers that are coming out of service. I've kind of been in touch with Ryan a little bit. He's, you know, but obviously it's you guys call. Of kind of what I've been told is basically when we first started the conversation, keeping them as the basically the lowball prices we're gonna get from trading was we're gonna keep all three. And part of this reason up is because I'm working with you guys have graciously let me work with Guy, so I'm trying to look forward to when I have a little bit of downtime on some projects, be able to look at the VINs, and we gotta get the re-registered plates and all that type of stuff. That's stuff that I can do for him to line up. You know, not heavy mechanic work that he's doing. And I don't know if you come to a decision or not, I just know that we've got one back from OSFI that just needs to be cleaned out and is kind of ready to go. And I guess in the big scheme of things, it's kind of should in a way be Guy's decision with a little bit of talking probably with you folks of which one's gonna go where for departments, what I've heard, how many we're gonna have going to different apartments. You know, I've heard that buildings, ground cemeteries is gonna get one, hopefully one that we still have a hitch on because we've looked at some slight, very inexpensive modifications that could be made to a current trailer that they have that might be able to still fall. The other one was water and sewer. And then this had come up originally, but I was hearing that it kind of got lost in the mix of the mechanic actually having one of those. For doing is called run to get parts, be cheaper than running that thing that it would be a 1-ton pickup out to get parts and stuff like that. I mean, he's done a road call for us one night in Hamilton. Because we had a zip tie that held up a 35,000-pound fire truck. And he had to come here and get all his tools, load them in. The other thing that happened was with him trying to borrow vehicles over there is he can't keep a certain amount of tools that have pretty much already been purchased for that in the vehicles, because what happens is that vehicle goes out and then the tools come back and it's a partial kit. You better search for the tools either in the other vehicle or they come back in another toolbox and they're not there when he needs.
Mhm.
And then John was pretty much running around, so. That was just kind of what,
So, yeah, we definitely had conversations about keeping the cruisers. I've sort of been waiting for a heads up from Ryan, because I know he's got to rotate them. It was gonna be a process of getting all his 3 cruisers in here, new ones and outfitted and all that, so. I just saw the 2 out back today. That's the first, I was gonna talk to him tonight because I knew he was coming in, so.
I mean, I have just run into him today and he's like, oh, that one's ready, we got some more.
Yeah, so I mean, quite honestly, I knew it was coming up, and we've had conversations, but which cruiser's going to which department, and we haven't had that conversation.
Okay.
We had it a while back, you were there, I think, and, just. Guy,
Yeah,
and
we're
I,
just
we were
kind of
talking, shooting the
Up
shit,
in the
but,
air.
yeah,
Low
so,
and say,
yeah.
hey, this would be a good fit here for
Yeah.
a temporary fixture, so.
yeah,
So leading into that, past that. Is that leaves us with 3 trucks. If basically we have the blue Ford in the pit. We have the old fire department car 1 that turned into the mechanics vehicle at one point and now is gone to Barry. And then we have John's pickup for the water and sewer. And I think some of this kind of got moved around in the CIP, putting it in when. Sal, you may know more about that as far as like what individual vehicle is. But if we're not keeping those, and I'm gonna say this too, like the parts and pieces we have that'll bed up in the pit from the green pickup. It's been sitting up there more than a year. We've got a tailgate, side pieces, other parts to that truck that are sitting once it hot. Ryan, you just got 6 brand new seats again for your cruisers, and if we're not gonna use those old ones, would it be worth? And I'm not gonna waste my time if we're not gonna do any of this. But would it be worth putting it on our website as far as like municipal bid? And what I've done for a little research, and I used to play around, looking and see what other places had. It was a buyer's premium, not a seller's premium on that site. A lot of places where different municipalities look for stuff, a lot of places where individuals look for stuff because they like to buy municipal stuff. Because they think a lot of the municipal stuff has been maintained a little better. More.
listen, we're being recorded right now.
It's been like a fleet type program. I mean, like I said, I'm more willing to kind of put that in, like I said, you guys have been gracious for, but I use that little bit of filler work if it's towards the end of the day, and stuff to use my time. As effectively as I can, if that's a direction.
Well, I mean, we've talked about selling some pieces of, beds, the beds that we replaced. We talked about selling off the beds and, I guess my thought process was that happened and.
Like those 2 trucks, basically, I can get 2 more out of the dump.
I mean, we've got-
basically. Pretty much 2 brand new sets of tires that would fit those trucks. I've got another set of tires off a truck that are. They look pretty brand new. I mean, the nubs are still on the side of them. They're a truck that we haven't owned in 6 years. Well, we burned the dog out for.
So.
I mean,
But
we've got
it just
2
doesn't
trailers.
feel
and
me
transfer Crap out too. I mean, this.
It seems to me like it would make sense to get an inventory together of the stuff that we're not using
Yeah, I mean.
and
it's-
sell it before it's into the
it's
ground.
gonna be damaging.
Right.
Right, so I personally would think that if you're volunteering to get that inventory together, come to us and say, here's a piece of paper with all the stuff that we have that we're not using anymore, an estimated value on them. Let us know, and then let's get them listed.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's Bob, some of it's guys, so.
Yeah, it's all different departments.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, it's money. I'm not saying you gotta get huge money, but you.
No. Listen,
It's
Thank you. We're looking at, we're jumping up and down over $900 for a lot.
I was gonna say,
If we can get
1,800
for.
that makes sense to me. Does that make sense to you
Yeah.
guys?
Like I said, I didn't, quite honestly, I thought most of that was happening anyway. So
Right. Yeah.
Shame on us for not paying attention.
I didn't,
Yeah.
And Jack, nothing I'll get with you two, so we can make sure we get the appropriate count and stuff.
And then Hugh, do you think it makes sense to, by the next meeting, to just hand us a list and then we can get it started? Do you want to leave it in our mailbox sooner than that? So we can review it before the next meeting? What do you think for your time
It
frame?
Probably depends on what the daily breakdowns that.
Right.
I had to work on tools to work on it.
But you gotta make some tools to make a tool,
Yeah, I'm just kinda, I
Right.
can try on. what
couple
I'll do-
weeks.
is I'll get some of the bigger stuff that we have.
Yeah.
Done. And then
We just don't want
at
to
least
cut
we
into his
graduate
day
and
job.
just maybe,
'cause-
Yeah, the other thing is too, I don't mind to make this a whole huge dragged out progress, but we have so much stuff that,
Yeah,
you know.
There's a lot.
We can't like say inundate the market, but all the stuff in the town of Hayes, like town of Hayes doing liquidation.
right. Fire sale, everything must go.
Right, how much longer before you're out of the old, like, you're totally into your new cruisers? You think?
Yesterday, we just removed the last of, so Amanda's car, the 2016 just came back from Ossipee.
Yep.
Her car's ready, the new one is on the road. They just removed some of the parts yesterday, so I have to just clean the car out and you guys can have at least one car. The second car is at Ossipee. I'm hoping it'll be done by Friday, but there's no guarantee, so.
So end of July. you'll be out from
Yeah,
all three.
easily.
Okay,
And the third car is not even on the schedule yet because they still haven't gotten all the parts for it yet.
okay,
So we'll have two of them by the end of July.
You'll have two of them, yes, easily.
yeah,
So I just make sure that all that energy gets coordinated with the normal work that he's doing.
So that's what I was gonna
Not-
say too.
not
You
separate.
just do us all the favor of using some common sense and not making this your work day. Yeah, yeah,
Stuff at
please.
the end of the day, we
Yeah.
don't wanna bust in and break something in
Yeah.
half and just.
right. You're not gonna tear it exactly. And you and Guy can collectively kind of get that stuff together. So, but I think it makes sense. Sure.
anything else under the business,
I've,
Dale?
Yeah, Bob mentioned today, you're gonna put some big boulders down there along the,
Williams Field.
Basketball
Court,
court.
yep, between the parking and the.
yeah,
basketball court.
now how's that gonna work during Old Home Day?
Shouldn't interfere with it because, in what way? Before I say it shouldn't interfere with it.
I don't know, people stumbling over them,
We're talking rocks that you can't stumble over.
well, they're gonna be big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
and they'll
The
just have to
idea is
walk
so,
around.
we can't have somebody hit the gas and
Right.
race across the basketball court
Right.
and hit somebody. Because we don't have any kind of barriers there,
Right,
and we're trying to avoid cars going on the basketball court unnecessarily.
Right.
Because it's brand new pavement, so.
and I think when they bring the tent, I think years past, one or two of them spikes, when they spike that tent down,
We're gonna talk to them about not doing that through the basketball court because it's brand new paved, so.
Yeah, we're on it, Dale. Good,
yeah,
Yeah.
good thought
Yeah.
though, but it's been a collective conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it's Bloods that is gonna do that again, so I think
Wow.
we should
they done it in the past.
traditionally or. And I think at this point, we've got less than a month, so it'll probably still be Bloods again. But I think we should probably reach out to Bloods Catering and let someone know. That we
Whoever
can't,
orders
we've
the
gotta,
tent, so it's either Mark Wilson or Ellen Rock that orders the tent, I'm sure, so.
okay. So we could reach out to the Old Home Day Committee and let them know
Yeah.
to communicate with whoever puts the tent up. To not drive their stakes through our new basketball court.
Right.
So
I guess the next question to that would be is how you can anchor the tent.
I don't care how they anchor it as long as it's not through our new basketball court. I don't set up tents. I tell them not to put it through the court. They can figure that out themselves, Philip. Like, I get it, but I don't know. I've never set up one of those tents in my life, so it wouldn't even be worth it for me to tell you how. But there's gotta be a different way than driving it through the basketball court. So after Old Homes Day, you come and ask me, how come you let them drive a hole through the basketball court? Not you, no, you wouldn't, would you? Yeah, no. So
He probably would if he donated the money to have it done.
anyway, too.
I don't know who, I'm not sure whether it was Bloods or not, but we did an event last October. You'll recall,
Yes,
and had a tent set up in front of, or next to the historic museum.
Yeah, right.
Without driving it through any pavement.
Well, they've set the tent up right over the basketball court.
No, I understand, but
that's gonna be their thing, is figuring out how to, but
they're just gonna have.
That's their
to
do it all the
They
time.
can-
yeah.
You do it all
They
the time.
they can figure out how to do it without driving through pavement.
So who gets a hold of? Who to,
I'll get hold of the old one, Jack, I will do it tomorrow, so.
okay,
I'll reach out.
I can if need be,
And-
so just
and-
let me know.
John, if that's something you guys check out the tent.
Yeah, I gotta do the permit for it.
Yep.
So he'll cover you.
Okay.
He's gotta make
Get a
sure,
permit
it
for the tent.
doesn't- he's gotta make sure it doesn't fall onto it. It's a structure, so.
So then it's already up, then they've already driven the hole through.
Oh, yeah. John, will you get with them before or only after?
What's that?
Will you get with them before or only after?
After it's set up.
Yeah.
All right,
we
so
gotta
one
talk
of
to
us still needs to get with them
Yeah.
before to make sure that it doesn't,
Yeah.
okay. All right,
them. So you got a few things?
I've got a couple things, yes, a few things, several things, so one of them was that, the construction that's going on our road, but over in Enfield, on, what is it, Maple?
Oh, yeah.
It's Maple.
Maple. In my recollection of talking to the engineers when they were in here about that project, their water project for Enfield. I believe the conversation was any damaged or compromised culverts that were on the Canaan portion of that road. Enfield was going to replace.
Yeah.
And I've been made aware today that there have culverts that have been pretty substantially crushed, damaged. The ends of them are off and bigger pieces replaced. So it looks like they might have tried to repair some of it. I'm not a culvert guy, but I think it's worth at least looking at.
Can we send Bob?
Well, I was out there today, they did a Band-Aid job,
Right, it's
Which
not gonna
isn't-
work, right?
it isn't acceptable,
Right,
and they're putting bank run gravel.
Yeah.
Over the top of them plastic culverts, we're talking about.
right, and it's
Right.
not gonna work. And that's what I heard too. I actually heard
And-
from Bob called.
And I spoke to the. Superintendent for Highway Department over there in Enfield, I said. Does anybody watching what they're doing,
Right,
what material they're using over your culverts?
no, I was told that the response was
And-
staying as far away from the project as possible.
Yeah.
Well, they've broken the pipes about 7 times already. So.
Right. So, perfect.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of the day, we need to figure out
So
how we make sure that they're getting. that
we
they're-
have an agreement of that it would be left in as good or better condition than it was. So
Yeah,
can we-
replace the culvert.
Can we reach out to the town manager and feel?
I talked to Bob about talking to Jim Taylor and,
Okay,
and.
just to get us all
looking at it
on.
From that level before we escalated up,
Okay,
give Highway over there a
So
chance to.
Jim Taylor's the superintendent. of highway.
He is, yeah.
okay. That works for me. I just know, honestly, it doesn't, it's not fair to the residents of Enfield to let it get all the way to a finished state and then make them pay to dig it back up. That's why I'm bringing it up. So, but if we can start the process, perfect.
My
William,
understanding is he'll be meeting with Jim tomorrow. Bob will.
okay.
Thank you.
Gonna get with him tomorrow. A request, the fence at Williams Field that is around the play structures. I'm wondering. The gates that open for access, so our highway department or municipal employees can have access to that area with pieces of equipment, tools, any of that. The gates that open basically right up onto the basketball court. So one of my big complaints is we've got people driving over and parking on the basketball court. So I think one of the things that we need to think about doing is moving the access to the play structure area. So we don't have to drive over the basketball court, right? So I guess I would ask,
It's that, and then the other problem is they open up right to the swing set, so you don't have enough room to maneuver.
Right.
To get a piece of equipment.
it's just not, it's not a good spot. So I would ask that the board, I would make a motion that we approve the ability to get those gates moved
I
to
want to visit.
get the things.
An estimate, find out how much you're gonna cost. to move it.
Okay.
So,
That works for me, but let's, so do I have to make a motion or is that just something we say we'd
well,
like?
let's get an
couple
estimate. Let's get a
estimates.
couple estimates and see what it's gonna
All
cost.
right, and then the motion comes.
Because we're
as
gonna
we
have to
it
get some,
done.
I mean, the fence where they're dug up this weekend is gonna.
Yeah.
disappear too, so,
Yeah. Okay,
Assuming you guys can't put that all back in the way it should be, really?
nice.
Okay.
Can you guys move that fence?
I would think so,
I would think so
But-
too, right?
finding time to.
Well, that's the time, doing that and the culverts on Turnpike Road, so,
Between now and.
Yeah.
Probably December.
right,
Let's see what a fence
Or
company,
around
let's see what a fence company can do.
yeah, I would say, it's,
It does it all the time. So
and then the other thing,
We ask you guys to do everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
File cabinets.
All of it. And then I would just say, piggybacking off that, if there's anybody that's listening or anyone who is listening that wants to start letting people know that, I mean, For years, we talked about how we needed a new basketball court. For years, we talked about how there are weeds growing up through the middle of our basketball court. The Williams Foundation comes, gives us a new basketball court, and we're driving over it, and we're parking on it. Just cut it out. We don't need to. There's zero reasons to be driving on that basketball. I don't care if you have kids that don't play or do play, be a member of our community, stay off the basketball court, please.
There's another question on there too.
Yeah,
I see somebody last year that had studs in the snow machine and went across
Right.
that new asphalt.
so
So I
actually,
don't know if you're gonna have to put up some signs
yeah, actually, what I will ask Keith to do is I will ask him to rope that basketball court area off in the winter.
Yeah.
So no snowmobile access.
Yeah.
You only stay on the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's a sign there that say stay on the trail.
Right.
But I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm one of those hammerheads that often don't pay attention to the sign. You're out in the middle of the woods somewhere and the sign says stay on the trail, and you haven't seen a house for 2 miles, there's a chance you bump off it.
Hmm.
But if you're in the middle of the town and the alternative is to go over the basketball court when you're asking to stay on the trail, please stay on the trail. You know, that's how they get shut down. So I will make a note to talk to Keith about doing that. Hang on a second.
Oh, another thing on other business. I read in the Valley News here that City of Lebanon is forcing everybody to buy these purple trash bags that going into effect in January. And they're gonna start enforcing it. October, November, but it's really gonna take an effect January 1st.
Okay.
So Town of Canaan, Enfield, everybody is on the list, so I
What do
didn't
you
know
mean
if
everybody's on
anybody,
the list?
the ones that deliver trash to this landfill out in Lebanon.
Have to comply.
So I'm thinking, yeah,
I wonder if it's only,
think
I
that-
wonder if it's not municipality, it's only someone like Rob Rudder or someone like that.
Well,
I don't know, but
there's the
it's
different,
kind of expensive for the bags, 10 bags.
Yeah, we're
is
not gonna have to bag
$10.
everything up and bring it.
Yeah.
there's a different,
No, but they may not accept
Anything
black
else, well,
trash
yeah.
bags anymore. That's what I was trying to
Well,
find.
I haven't read the article, but
there's
it's,
a difference, it's not necessarily a simple plan they're rolling out with, at least I haven't read it in depth, but you get a system for residents of Lebanon and a system for non-residents. And one gets to use a certain punch card or pass card,
Right, well,
and the other one doesn't, or they do for a little while, but not for a long time. One gets to buy color bags and the other doesn't. So I have to look at it again because it's not easy to understand.
Right. And it says they're gonna do away with the punch card.
Ultimately,
Right, ultimately,
eventually, depending upon whether you're a resident or a non-resident, because the residents can still do the punch card.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
a little confusing, I
Yeah.
think, at first blush.
Yeah, they said they were gonna have the computer system all in working condition in
So I think
January.
one of the things that we should all pay attention to and that the board should really, knowing that we're working to do something different with the transfer station. Digging into it, the little bit that I have and blah, blah, blah. It's pretty obvious that we're getting ready to come into a different era of trash and transfer stations. Our transfer stations are filling up and everybody's scrambling to figure out what we do with them. I think it is on our shoulders to try to send our transfer station in line with wherever we think we can project that they're going. Right? So I know that's kind of what our thought process has been anyway. We don't want to go backwards with it, but just so everybody knows, that's one of the things I'm thinking, like, we're not just gonna go out and get some old stuff because that's how it used to be. Well, I want to get us in line. My hope personally, as one person on the board, is to get us in line with everybody else around us and stay with those people as they move forward with the systems that everyone else is gonna go, not be left behind even further. So, I guess one of the, we need to, back to the Williams Field and Old Homestay stuff. We need to mention to John, please, to make, I had spoke with Helen a little bit as well. about making sure that the septic over there is pumped out before it goes. That was one of her concerns that I'm not sure. I think she didn't mention it.
Well, they're bringing in porta potties,
Yeah, but she,
since they always bring in porta potties.
yeah, she sent me a message to make sure they were pumped. And then I would have a
We don't
question,
have power in that
Yeah,
building.
yeah,
We use it anyway, so.
right? Okay,
So say it's hard to use the bathrooms there without.
We've got somebody
Electricity.
giving us an estimate on what it's gonna take to get it safe. So people aren't getting
Right.
electrocuted, which she knew about.
Yeah.
then I think that's it.
I got a question.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Thanks.
So I want to hopefully add to the agenda for our next meeting to really revisit what Tom is talking about, with sort of creating a plan to attract more businesses to our town. I think that's something I've wanted to do for a while. I know we have a lot on our plate, but it's something positive would be good to work on. So maybe talk about seeing if we have a group of people that are interested in so we can add that to our next meeting, that would be great. And then at the last meeting, which I was not here, we had a late request for abatement for solar, and I'm wondering, are we gonna make a decision on that?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
You wanna make a motion to,
So, we had the request, I spoke with Ashley to see, she said that the value was that solar system was valued at 15,000. I questioned the amount that she told me, so she checked with the assessor. So if we approved it, it would be $408 a year or $204 for the first half of the bill that just went out. I agree with the comments that it wasn't super clear that people had to apply for that, and when the deadline was, yes, there's some onus on the owner to do that. I don't think we want to discourage people from seeking out alternative power, so I am going to make a motion that we approve it.
I would,
so. I'm very torn with this whole discussion, and I don't think the person that came in, you know, I think I'm on a page where we're trying to give everybody equal footing and no special interest given to anybody. And the comment that was made that one hand washes the other, and bringing in a previous town administrator to vouch for the mistake that she made did not work in her favor. And I am very serious when I said, you know, that the Dow family has done a tremendous amount for this town, and I'm very appreciative of that, but I just feel it should not be construed in a way that, you know, because they've done so much for the town that we owe her that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I wasn't looking at it from that perspective. I was just thinking, you know, we didn't. All the things that I said. So if we don't have a second, then that's fine. Someone else can make a different motion.
I am more in agreement with Stephen on this one. I would say so. I am not in agreement
It's
with
1 year, it's a 1 year miss of a
6
credit.
months. 6 months.
So,
And for the largely the same reasons that Stephen said. This is one of the hard parts about sitting up here is, you know, but one of my goals as a board member in town, not that yours isn't city, but just to give my explanation briefly as why, is to get this, it's straight across the board. We, you know. Yeah, that's where
I don't disagree with you. It's the first year that we've offered it. That's, you know, that was one thing that came into my mind too, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have a second. Then do we have a different
so
motion?
we just don't need to sign the abatement or the.
Well, should we have a vote that we're not going to, or do we just not sign it?
I don't think we need to, because we don't vote on all the abatements. We decide we're gonna sign them or not sign them. So,
What's the technical end of it, Jack? Do you know? Or do you
Well,
have some-
technically, if too much time goes by, the abatement is denied.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I
we
think,
can vote on it.
I think it would make better political sense to vote on it and not just let it dangle, because I think you did tell them the last meeting that you'd have an answer for them.
So what do we do?
So do we have a motion to accept signing the abatement for
We had it, but we didn't get a second, so it fell flat.
Okay, so I will second your. And then we can say no or yes to that. So,
Or you can just make another motion that we don't sign it.
okay, I will make a motion that we do not sign the.
This is all the.
We do not sign, it is, because I don't want to put a double negative in there.
I know. I
I'll
would
make a-
second.
All right,
Yeah. All in favors?
all in favor not to sign the abatement?
Aye.
Aye,
And then I'll be opposed.
okay,
That doesn't happen often these days.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Any other, non-agenda? Thomas?
Cheer me
not
up.
to be a stickler, but this board for some time now has changed its policy about making minutes available.
We are running into some software issues and we're working through them. It's been a cluster from
Yeah.
our previous administrator leaving, that a lot of the passwords and abilities changed, and we are working through it. So we've had Twin Bridge in here 3 or 4 times getting Jack the ability to do it. So it is, we're well aware of it. It's not anything we're doing.
They are available in the town office on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they are
available.
available for both.
You can go in and get them, get a copy. So
But they are there.
Okay.
they're just not posted.
We're gonna return to put it back here. We've had that discussion.
I would just make this suggestion that you might want to just in the Friday email or something, let people know that the minutes are available in the town office.
We can
Because
do that.
they're not here, and the last minutes posted, I think, are April 19th. So just,
We're aware, we're not bringing them here, just we're trying to save money on paper.
I'm
Quite
just,
frankly.
you know, the law says 5 days
Yep.
approved or not, so.
But here's the deal, though. The law does not say they have to be posted on the website. So posting them on the website is just a courtesy for everybody, but they have been and are all posted within the legal time frame in the town office.
Right.
So you can go see.
You're right, they just need to be publicly available.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
So we're gonna get back to posting them as soon as we can.
I know we were on the planning board, we were a little behind ourselves.
Bill, did you have one other thing?
Yeah, I was just curious what the status of the property next to Cozy Corners transfer status.
The lawyers have just come to terms today, I think, so there was some just language, and the lawyer for Cozy Corner was tied up with some other stuff, and it just, so it's hopefully it'll be going through fairly shortly now. It looks like it's all wrapped up, correct? That's
I
what
think we've resolved the deed issue.
Yeah. So. All right, thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate it. We're gonna, I have a motion to go to non-public.
Motion to go into non-public.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone online.
Want this Valley News so you can read it?
Oh, sure,
We
yeah.
Have it.
Yeah, I kind of look at, I actually